Hustle, hustle, hustle.
Don't stop moving,
Hustle.
don't stop moving, don't stop moving.
Hustle. Hustle.
Whoa.
Hustle. Hustle, 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 hustle.
Don't stop moving, don't stop moving, don't stop moving.
Hustle.
What's up, my friends? How you doing? I hope you're doing great today. I hope you came prepared to talk about your PMP exam journey. So we've got a few things we're going to talk about today. First of all, we're going to talk about what it means to put together a PMP exam study system. PMP exam study system is a system that you use to get through this whole process. Some people don't have a system. Other people do. Some firms provide you with an entire system to get certified. So I'm going to be showing you some of the elements in the PMP exam study system, what you should be doing, and to give you some ideas of what you could add to your routine study system. The first thing that you want to have in your system before anything else is this. So I'm going to be writing them down one by one. You want to have a coach and you want to have backup energy. What do I mean by that? There are times you just don't feel you can do it, and in those times what you need is a coach, someone who has got you covered, someone who could give you that inspiration and motivation to keep chugging along. So, coach, it's very important. Have a coach. If you want to tap into this channel, feel free to use that resource, because I'm here to act in that capacity as a coach, as a mentor, as a trainer. But the thing about a coach is the coach helps steer you in the right direction, right? It's one thing for someone to say, do this, but it's another thing for the person to say, why don't you think about that? Or have you thought about something else? Or look at this and see if you can get answers, as opposed to giving you all the answers. And then the aspect of inspiration and motivation is also there. So you want to have a coach, and your coach is going to help direct you to various study tools, study techniques, and direct you to certain outputs. Now, I'm not talking about verbatim the PMP exam inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about outputs and tools and various things you can use to study. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you some of those in addition. Okay. The first thing I would recommend, in addition to having a coach, is, if possible, you want to get a summary. You want to get a summary of sorts of the entire journey. A lot of people, unfortunately, they get into this journey and they're like, oh, I didn't know that all that stuff was required. So I would suggest you first of all want to have an overview, right? That's going to be one of the outputs you get from your efforts. You're going to have a solid overview. It could be in a book format, you digest it, then you get the output of an understanding and an overview of this entire journey. Because so many people, they start off for the PMP exam and they're like, oh, I didn't know that was required. I didn't know that was required. So get an overview. Very important to have an overview. This could be in the form of a booklet. So I want to have a solid overview. The next thing that I would recommend that you have, other tools I would recommend: book or guide. Some people call it a book, some people call it their study guide, whatever it is. But you want to have a solid study guide for the exam. Some of these study guides could be quite huge, which could be quite problematic for you, because they're almost as big as the real thing. You know, some of them are almost as big as the PMBOK guide. You know, and it's not a bad thing if they have value in it. For example, our book, which comes with our course, we don't sell this without people being registered for our course. But this book is called Project Management Essentials. We thought it would be cool to put NASA's ship up there because they were our clients when we came out with this edition. But this book has got a lot of value in it. You can see it's got quite a few tables, and those tables are pretty much templates and tools and techniques. So people that sign up for the course, they get this book, you know, those who sign up for the 1 month and 3 months and so on. So it's not a small book, but it has examples of the different ITTOs, the tools, the techniques, the inputs and outputs. Some of them are well documented in this book. And it's a very easy read. I hear from students all the time. See, that's an example of your risk register right there. And we show how the register is grown. And we just try and make it easy for people to read. So I'm not sure what study guide you're using, but I would highly recommend a solid study guide. In addition to your study guide, you know what else I recommend? Your PMBOK. If you are not using the PMBOK guide as a study tool, you need to be. We heard this from a student who dialed in a couple of weeks ago. We've heard this from quite a few people. Last night we heard from Victor, and Victor Rodriguez. He told us, hey, you read the PMBOK guide and, you know, get an overview first, which was good advice, and then read the PMBOK guide, but don't dive into the PMBOK guide first without having an overview. You'll fall flat. So that's your PMBOK guide, another great study aid, okay? In addition to this, the next thing I want to recommend for those of you that are auditory learners is audio. So this is an audio CD set that is called Project Management Audio Digest. It also comes in downloadable form on Praizion.com. Very important. Part of the techniques, quizzes. Quizzes are definitely a must-do as a technique. You want to quiz yourself, because if you don't quiz yourself, how are you going to know the effectiveness of what you studied? So quizzes, and then mock exams. You want to take some really good mock exams. So you've got your overview, you've got your books, you've got your quizzes. The next thing I would recommend that is another great tool is a learning system. This is like the engine of everything else. If you have a solid learning management system, you'll be able to keep on track. You'll know what you've got left, what you've done, what your scores are. So students that subscribe to our course on Praizion.com, and I'll just put that up here. People that subscribe to our course get the learning management system. This learning management system, it has 13 chapters on the PMBOK guide. Then it's got professional responsibility covered. By the way, last night we heard from Victor. He said, hey, you want to read that professional responsibility thing because the understanding of it is going to help you answer more questions. So professional responsibility is also covered there. Then we have quizzes on that system. We have mocks, and then we have a ton of other things, tons of stuff. One of the other techniques here is gamification. You want to gamify your studying. Have you thought of that? Games. Make a game yourself for your study. Now, when I talk about games, people say, Phil, how is that even doable? This is serious stuff. Yep. I know it's serious stuff, but you got to make it a little bit adaptable for your own self, even though it seems like it's rigid and in a mold. One of the games is to reproduce page 61 using cards, and I usually pitch my teams, my students, against each other. and they have a ball putting this together. I think the record of doing it properly is about under 5 minutes. So you want to make a game for yourself. There are all sorts of games. You could have memory games, you can have puzzle games. Right? You can have all sorts of games. In addition to that, I would also recommend getting one of these. They have these at your local bookstores. So get one of these little cases. And when I train folks, I usually break down the PMBOK guide into sections. So this is chapter 5, for example. And chapter 5 has its own flashcard deck. I would recommend that you guys have your own little flashcard decks. So I've got a flashcard for each of the ITTO. So this is facilitated workshops. And any terms that I feel could come out on the exam, I'm going to document. There's WBS dictionary, so not necessarily an output, but a sub-output. Questionnaires and surveys, you know, on and on like that. And you could also include a description of what it is behind. But these are under $2 in many a store. And this, just about $2 or $3. So it's $5. You can make a very effective flashcard system. Jason actually shared this a few weeks ago when we had one of these meetings. Hi, KR Skiller and Mr. Rout. Good to see you guys. Hope you're doing well. And in addition to that, you could use various colors for different knowledge areas so you don't get them mixed up. But this is all part of building your system, you know. So that's scope management. The thing I like about these folders is they've got compartments where you can store the various chapters. You know, here's my chapter on quality. See, got a quality chapter as well, chapter 8. So doing this, the process of doing this is just totally valuable. The more you do it, you know, the more you use these cards, you make them yourself, the more value you're going to get. Okay, so again, the flashcards, you can use them as a tool, but then what you do with it, how you use them, the puzzles and stuff could be part of the technique. All right, a few more things. A second. All right, we have something called flowcharts. Flowcharts could also be used as a technique, if you wanted to call it that. Flowcharts of the PMBOK guide content. And the reason why I'm saying this, some of you guys think like how I do. I think in a process fashion. What comes first, what comes next, and that is actually helpful on the exam. But the PMP exam could test you on your awareness of some of these data flows in the PMBOK guide. Now the thing about these data flows in the PMBOK guide, they don't necessarily test you. They just teach you. You got to take it up a notch by going into test mode. So I'm going to show you a quick quiz. I'm going to show you a quick quiz and I'm going to ask you guys to answer it because I'm trying to illustrate what I would like you to do as part of your study system. So take a look at that. Can you guys tell me the answer to this? Something gives you work performance reports. What is that thing? And then something gives you project communications. The work performance reports goes into the process that gives you project comms. So if I call this A and I call the second one B, what is A and what is B? You guys want to take a stab at that and tell me? By the way, when we get done with this, I've got a 20-question quiz that's going to boot you into shape. So this is the beginning, warming up for that quiz I'm going to give you guys. So tell me, what do you think? Does that make sense? So A is a process and B is a process. A is a process and B is a process. You get where I'm going? A is a process, B is a process. This is one of the reasons why you need a good flashcard system to help you. A good flashcard system will get you to the point where you know this stuff really, really easily. So A, Dev, what you've put is an output or an input, but it's not a process. And the same for B. So what I'm looking from you is what exactly or what process is A and what process is B. Which process gives you that? And then WPL goes into another process that gives you project communications. So you do know that this is a participative class, it's a study group. So I'm relying on your, Andy, thank you very much. Andy has typed in B. He is absolutely correct. Thank you, Andy. That's the correct answer for B. And A would be which one? A is what? Okay, let me help you out. It starts with the letter M. A starts with the letter M. All right, so I'm going to write down the answers for you guys. I'll just write down the abbreviations. But Andy is correct. Thank you, Andy. You are absolutely right. Andy has typed in the right answer. Good. Thank you very much, Andy. So, well, not that one. Oh, it is. So, MCPW, Monitor and Control Project Work, is the first one. And the second one is Manage Communications, MC. You need to think about your PMBOK guide content like this, folks. I'm going to give you one more, and I expect to see some good answers like what Andy just did. Okay? So here's another one for you. So the first one, we've got a blank box, and that is giving you WPD. And we've got a second box, and that second box is giving you schedule forecasts. So what is it? I've written them in green this time. Here we go. Work performance data comes from A, it goes into process B, and process B gives you schedule forecasts. What is A and what is B? It's from that process group, or from that, it's from that knowledge area, Dev, but it's not that one. It's not that process. All right, going once. Thank you, Andy. It is indeed direct and managed project work. Very good. This is stuff you need to have hardwired into your system. Thank you, Dev. That's correct. It is DMPW. And what is B? Work performance data goes into a process, and that same process gives you schedule forecasts. Thank you, Andy. You got that right. Andy's knocking it out of the park. It is control schedule. So why am I honing in on this area? Because I find a lot of PMs struggle knowing what comes from what and where does it go after. And to do that, you need to do two things. One, study your PMBOK guide and these data flows. So my advice to you folks is to make this data flow part of your studying, because it's going to solidify everything for you. All right? Next thing that I would recommend, and we're getting to the close of this section about how to develop a good system. You want to have memory games. In addition to memory games, you want to have someone who can help you with those memory games. And that person is your study buddy. So it really goes somewhere in between. So I just put this here, your study buddy. Another important individual in the mix. Your study buddy is going to give you further help, advice, especially with the memory games and the exercises and the inspiration. Still, as part of this system, apart from the inspiration you get from your coach and from your study buddy, you don't want to forget, put your stakeholders at home or around you, those family members, cousins, friends, people who are around you, put them into the mix as well. I actually have a video about how to help your loved one, how to help your friend, your colleague, how to help them succeed on the exam, and that's out there on YouTube. So you want to have your stakeholders in the mix as well. Sometimes your stakeholders that have no idea about the PMBOK guide can actually help you with these as well. I actually had a student out of Canada, and he said, Phil, my kids know the ITTOs better than I. They're always punishing me when they do quizzes with me because they know it so well. And they're like, Dad, you're slow. You can't remember this. So they helped him out. They helped him out. He's now PMP. In addition to all of this stuff, a very big, I should call it, tool is the schedule. If you do not have a schedule guiding all of this stuff, it could be a little bit hard. It could be. So I would recommend having a schedule, and I'll tackle the schedule on a different day. I'll show you more about the schedule and how I think you should employ the schedule. But for now, this is really just showing you things that you need to think about to get a solid PMP study system. All right? Get a solid system in place. So the schedule, very important. And last but not least, you want to really hammer on these mocks. I know I mentioned it as a small piece, but this is really, really big. Andy, the whole idea about yay! Yeah, Andy came with his A game. Good job, Andy. A lot of people, they're like, Phil, PMP exam is crazy. How do I deal with it? You got to get your system down. And then you got to get some knowledge ammo. Knowledge ammo! You're like, Phil, have you lost it? No, this is knowledge ammo. When the PMP exam is jerking you around, you bring out your knowledge ammo. You whack it in the head whack the system, whack the PMP with the system. You know, a lot of people don't have the knowledge ammo devices. This is what you need to do to get that knowledge ammo, to get that, you know, to get bulked up, to get toned up and ready to kill the beast. You know, these are weapons that you're going to use to conquer the exam. Dev says, thank you, Alex. Dev says we must need the detailed knowledge about what the process does itself before dive into data flow charts. Kind of let us know the details, benefits of data flow charts. Absolutely. So Dev brings up a good point. So in addition to understanding the data flows, I guess the first base is to know the process. The overviews pretty much cover all of the processes, and they give you an idea of what exactly the processes do. But to go a step further, Dev, the reason why you need to know the flow is on the exam. You could be asked, you're a project manager doing XYZ. What do you do next? So in order to know what to do next, you first of all have to know what comes from the process, and then know the tools and techniques you're using, and then it will make sense what goes where, okay, and what you should do next. So those data flows are just going to help you become more agile, as it were. If you see a question, you're not thinking, oh, WPD, where does that come from? Where, you know? So watch that video. I also have another video out there, and this video is called PMBOK Mainline. So you want to look for this video, PMBOK Mainline. If you Google this, it should come up with a video that I've done on how the processes interact at a very high level, okay? Videos, for those people who learn in that fashion, might help you. All right, so now we're done with your study system. We're going to go into the hardcore PMBOK guide stuff. I hope you're ready. So get a pen and a paper. We're going to be covering integration. We're going to be dismantling integration, digging into it, showing it who's boss, basically dissecting the entire book and leaving the remnants for whoever cares to pick it up. Okay, so get your coffee, get your tea, get powered up, and in the next few minutes we're going to do that. For now, I'd like to answer any questions you have about a study system or anything else. You got any questions? Now is a good little intermission for me to take some of those. I know some of you may have to fly off the call, so let me know your questions before you hop off from this first segment. Questions, things that are bothering your mind. Anything that you want me to talk about? Is there anything you want me to talk about today? Anything you want me to talk about today? Can you have too much to can you have too much study material to study? Yes, you can. You can actually get bogged down a little bit with too much study materials. I usually tell my students to focus on one study guide and focus on one set of materials, because the multiplicity of materials could become an exam in and of itself. Different trainers say things in different ways. If you find yourself using too many study materials, especially at the onset, it may not be a very good thing for you, you know. So when I studied for the exam, I remember using one particular set of tools and a system, and I stayed on it. And then at the tail end, I picked up another book, and I looked at the book, And I was able to very quickly assess, this is weak. It's weak compared to this. And then when I was about to take my exam, I started thinking maybe I should take one mock exam outside of these. So I ended up taking one mock exam, and to be quite honest, one mock exam outside of the regular system, it helped me. It helped prepare me a little bit better, you know. And I say this not because the mock exams I took before weren't good, but they weren't crazy enough. And that's what I mean by taking crazy mock exams. Very few of our students get 80s and 70s on our mock exams. It's usually in the 50s, high 50s if they're about a month to the exam, high 60s if they are days away from the exam. So it gives them a run for their money, and it shows them a lot of stuff they don't know. So I would recommend, Alex, try to stick to what you know has worked. If there is historical information that backs up the training materials, especially the mock exam. I cannot state how important the mock exam is, because some people living in a false paradise think they're going to go into the exam and it's going to be like the mocks they're taking. No, it's not. You know, even our mocks, the exam is going to be a little bit different in terms of the way the questions are posed, but at least the craziness of the questions is going to be similar. Some of our students even say the PMP exam wasn't as crazy as your exams, Phil. So find something that has historical information, has a reliable system, has been used by a bunch of people, and works. You know, I usually tell people, look at the success that that particular system has had with other people. If you begin to hear things, and I have heard a lot of things from students who type in emails to us and say, Phil, kind of similar to what you're saying, Phil, I took this course and it was no good. They just took $2,000 of my money. I actually gained more benefit from watching your videos, Phil, online than going to a class. I have heard this so many times. And it's really unfortunate because $2,000 is not chump change, and you got people putting all that money into a system and no support, and the system is just no good. Because you get 80s and then you get into the real exam and you're so far away from even a 50, you get below target, or needs improvement, you know. So that's not very good. Okay, I know that my internet connection is a little bit bad at the moment, so I might be looking for a few things to turn off to make sure that I don't lose my connection here. But I'm going to give you a little quiz before I go do that, okay? So I hope you guys are ready for a little quiz on integration. Give you a little quiz on integration before we go into the actual topic. So did I see a few comments? I think I saw some comments from Dev. So Dev says, I've seen many REP providers and their videos. I think no one is teaching as you. I have found this data flow charts only on your videos, but it really helps me. Thank you, Dev. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate the vote of confidence. Yeah, I have found a lot of students all around the world to have found this to be useful. And I'm hoping that as we do these sessions, more and more students will be able to use these little videos to study. Because it's hard, you know. When I took my exam, I didn't have this kind of support. I wish I had. Well, there was no YouTube. There was no Facebook. There was MySpace. But MySpace, everyone was just listening to music. It was predominantly music, you know. Very few people were putting out anything by way of PMP supports. So social media has really helped. Social media has changed that. All right, so here's your quiz on integration. Simple things that I expect you guys to know by now. Now, without looking at your PMBOK guides to make it a really worthwhile quiz, I'd like you to show the answers. So this is a process, and this is an output. Very simple. I'm going to be writing down certain outputs, and I want you to write the processes, or certain processes, and I want you to at least think about the key output or the major output. All right? Here we go. Again, I want the major output, you see? So I'm giving you the cheap one first. There are three things I expect you to tell me. For monitor and control project work, one big thing I expect you to tell me, okay? Two big things I expect you to tell me, all right? So that is our process and output. And now we're going to have a process input quiz below this. Okay? Now for the process input quiz, I'm going to put your processes here in red, just so we don't mix them up. Or should I say your inputs? So if I write down an input, I want you to tell me which process it is from. So again, for this second section, this is part one, this is part two. For part two, process input, all right? I'm going to give you a few minutes. If you would like, you can chat these in if you want. So if you can chat in the answers to one, just put one, the answer is this, two, the answer is this. All right? You can type in the answers into chat. It's dynamic. After the meeting, no one else sees it. So it's only for our use. So don't worry about chatting it in. Chat it in, and I would really like to see what that is. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Dev. So I see your question. A lot of people are not ahead of the curve. You know, I have given it a lot of consideration, how I can help my students. In fact, I stay up at night thinking, how am I going to help people kill this exam? You know, I go by my own experience. My experience on the exam was awful. It was an awful experience. You know, and I made a promise to myself, if I can come out of this sick exam alive in one piece, I promise I'll let everyone know how tough the exam is. I'll let everyone know. I'll help people. I said, look, get me out of this place and I'll begin to put videos out. And I actually did start putting videos out. The very next week I got certified. I started off with something called the PMP matrix because it really is like a matrix. And that started helping people. I started getting that out to people on the web. There was no Facebook and YouTube, but there was eBay. So I started helping people out by putting out video CDs on eBay. The very week after I got certified, I started putting content out. You might even find some old content I put out for free on the US library site. Back in those days, you could share videos. So I've been extremely zealous about helping people, and that's why I come out with all of these things. Anyway, give you one more minute. Let me stop the chit-chat, let you solve this problem, and I will come back looking for answers. I'll see you in a bit. Well done. It shows that you've mastered some of the core inputs and outputs for this. And I would recommend for everyone in their study approach to develop a table like this for every process and see if you can fill in the key outputs and the key inputs. Now, by key outputs, I'm talking about those outputs that are very unique and largely unique to the process. So, project charter, project management plan, validated changes, cost forecast, stuff like that. All right? Do you guys have any questions about integration? Because now would be a good time to hone in on those questions. Huh? Andy says, I mean, how could I forget about deliverables? So obvious, yet it escaped me. That's why we do these things, Andy. It happens to even the best of us. Yeah, you're doing great. All right. No questions. Let's erase this. So off comes this. The thing about integration, to really understand integration, you have to go through the entire PMBOK guide first, and then integration becomes even clearer. Might be a little bit clear at first, after a bit of reading, but knowing all of the other knowledge areas helps. Helps a lot, a whole lot. It would be nice if PMI would do that, Dev. It would be nice if they did. We have a lot of REPs and training companies putting out some numbers, bogus numbers about, performance. And PMI says, hey, you got to be careful. You can't just throw out those numbers. Before, it used to be very rampant. People on their website will say, oh, we got 99.9% of people passing the exam and all that. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. Dev, what I would really prefer, that Praizion is number one in your mind or in what people experience. I don't care about whatever people put out, because the ultimate goal is to get you to the point where you know this material, you get certified, and you begin to help other people. So I'm a product of the process of helping. My mentor, Mary Hirschner, saw me in an environmental engineering firm in Arizona and said, you'd probably be a good candidate to take the PMP. And that's what I'm looking for you guys to do. Just remember, after you get certified, help someone. You never know how that person's life and what you've shown that person could affect others. Like the thousands of people that have benefited from my training, there would be no training if not for Mary. If Mary hadn't said, Phil, I think you're a good candidate for this thing. Here is my study guide. Here is my PMBOK guide. Take it. Go read for the exam. Go apply. Pretty much she wired me for success. I had already done a dissertation on project management systems. I had no idea what the PMI was. And I was managing and doing things from a more academic perspective until she showed me the world of the PMI. So I'm relying on you guys. After you get certified, what are you going to do with it? I hope you teach. I hope you mentor. I hope you train. You know, when you get certified, I'd really love for you guys to come back as visiting professors. Come back with your background, you know, be it engineering, whatever, finance. I don't really care about the background. The more diverse the background, the better, actually. And you guys come back as visiting profs and create some content for other people to benefit from. One of our students has a channel now on YouTube. There's never going to be enough of it because you're the expert in your domain. Andy says, Phil, what about the project selection methods? It seems to belong to the inputs to the developed project charter process, yet the PMBOK doesn't list them as inputs. So that's a very good point. So they are subliminally covered in a business case sometimes. And the business case makes a case for the project and shows you the return on investment, shows you why a particular solution was chosen, but it's not in every single business case. I've been in firms where net present value was important, and thank goodness our CFO knew what it was all about. But I've also been in firms where people couldn't care less about those metrics, and all they wanted was, are we going to make some money? Are we going to create some traction in the industry? Are we going to be the first to market? Yes or no? And that was the decision. But you're absolutely right, Andy. They are subliminally in your business case when you come to think of it. Now, I guess the reason why PMI doesn't list it out is because it would be an explicit endorsement that this, you know, a lot of people take PMBOK guide verbatim, this must be an input, but it's not the case. It could be in the business case, but it's not in every single business case. Okay? Now that you bring that up, Andy, I'm curious to see how that stuff is talked about here. So let me open up. But yeah, going through what we've got here, we've got kind of the usual things. Business document is one. Yeah, so it says typically the business need and the cost benefit analysis are contained in the business case to justify and establish boundaries for the project. It says for more information on the business case, see section 1.2.6.1. So they've kind of changed how this stuff is rearranged in the 6th edition. But going into the business case, it says a documented economic feasibility study used to establish the validity of the benefits of a selected component lacking sufficient definition, and that is used as a basis for the authorization of further project management activities. It says the project sponsor is generally accountable for the development and maintenance of the project business case document. The project manager is responsible for providing recommendations and oversight to keep the project business case, project management plan, project charter, blah, 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 in alignment with one another. It says project managers should appropriately tailor the noted project management documents for their project. It says in some organizations, the business case and the benefits management plan are maintained at the program level. But anyway, you bring up a good point, Andy. A good way to think about this is to see your project selection methods as a precursor to your developing the charter, and hopefully ultimately that information gets put into a business case. Now, let's take a look at the current PMI stats for August 2018. How many PMPs are there in the world? There are 876,500. And that is an increase from the previous month. CAPMs, we now have 35,894. PGMPs, the number has pretty much been around 2,000 for quite a while now. So we've got 2,462. ACP on the rise from the last reporting period by roughly 600 plus. And they are now 22,783. PMISP is one of those that stays pretty much static. Very little increment over the years, 1,878. PMI RMP has moved a little bit,
Compared to years ago, it's now 4,858. The PFMP, the Portfolio Management Professional, 578, the smallest number. And the PMI PBA, Professional Business Analyst, is 2,850. So if you really do an analysis, the one that has outperformed many over the past few years is definitely the PMI-ACP. That has not been out as long as the PGMP, and it's already 10x'd it. And the PMI-PBA came out not too long ago compared to the PGMP, and it's already shot past